all 7 of the judges ready? And the timer will begin. We're almost finished with today's debate round. There's just one last speech that has to be gone over, and that would be mine. Now, in the last second affirmative round today, we're going to be addressing the issues that the negative team has brought up, boil them down to the key arguments, and show you, the judges, why not only an affirmative ballot is needed, but warranted. And we're going to start off with topicality. Now, this was the argument that the negative team keeps addressing, and we just like to further this down to one big point: definitions. We define towards as in relation to or in regards to Syria, and we can see that we are indeed changing our policies towards Syria. It doesn't matter where the rebels come from, where they have been. It's not towards the rebels, it's towards the nation of Syria. Our policies are labeled as policies or aid towards Syria. And we can see through our definitions that we've addressed countless times in both the constructives and the rebuttals that our definitions do stand and that we are indeed topical. With that little bit out of the way, we're going to move down to what the negative team had addressed, the 3 main voting issues. And first off was that of vetting. They said with this new 3-pronged strategy that we're given, we can more thoroughly vet rebels. Now we ask the question first off, who are these rebels we're talking about? As we've addressed with evidence from the affirmative team, we're unsure of who these moderate rebel groups are that are worth vetting. If you don't know where to start, how can you get to the vetting process? That was unanswered by the negative team. The other issue with vetting we asked is, with this new vetting program, is it really going to work? The negative team really hasn't addressed it. They said this new idea is possible, but not, in a sense, going to have a significant impact. We've quoted from the Defense Department, from the CIA, that vetting doesn't work because of linguistic issues, cultural issues, and policies. The negative team has yet to address that argument as well. We asked, well, is vetting really going to make a difference? According to what we've said from the Defense Department and the CIA, it cannot change anything. Now we asked the question, this was the second voting issue, that of the 3-pronged strategy. We as the affirmative team have addressed these issues in a number of ways. The first one was the ground troops. We asked, and I asked specifically in my first constructive speech, who are these ground troops we're talking about? And are they actually of good U.S. reliance? Now, the negative team said, well, they haven't really talked about the issue, but we indeed have. With that question, we showed you as the affirmative team that these ground troops are actually aligning themselves with ISIS and Al-Qaeda open-heartedly. And we asked the question, is that wise? The ground troops that we have right now aren't ground troops that are loyal to the United States, but that are loyal to other organizations such as terrorists. So we asked the question, is it really useful to use these ground troops we have? And the answer is no, because they're not loyal. Now the second part of these 3-pronged strategy that the negative team addressed was that of training and vetting. We've already talked about vetting and how it's not going to really significantly change anything because we don't know who these moderate rebel groups are to start with, but also that of training to fight these new groups. They said that the more training we give the Free Syrian Army, the better it'll become. Now we asked the question, will this training actually change anything? We've given aid, we've given training in the past, but this training that we've given them have only created more hardships, more conflicts. In our first speech, we addressed how the Free Syrian Army is losing ground towards ISIS and Al-Qaeda with the training that we're already giving them. We asked the question, is really more training going to solve anything? The negative team has said, well, this new idea is a great idea, but they haven't actually backed up that training with evidence, saying that with more training is going to come more positive results. In the current status quo, in the current inherent system, we see that it's not doing anything. In fact, it's making more bloodshed, more problems, and letting ISIS gain more ground in Syria. Now that we've addressed the vetting in the 3-pronged strategy, the last question was that of significance, the last voting issue. And that was underneath the plan. They said that with the plan passing, we're going to strengthen ISIS. Now I ask the question, how is this possible? As of right now, we addressed that we're giving $3.5 billion in humanitarian aid, and that is ending up in the hands of our enemies, ISIS in particular. We also said that along the sides of ISIS is the Free Syrian Army fighting with our weapons. And if they're not fighting with our weapons with Syria, they're, in a sense, losing the ground to Syria because they're poorly trained, or they're not using the exact weapons that we're giving them. So we ask the question, if we repeal that aid, what's really going to aid ISIS farther? True, they may, in a sense, go towards ISIS, some of the organizations that we are funding, but that's a serious issue. If they're going to disembark from their loyalty, in a sense, if the Free Syrian Army is going to say, if you don't fund us anymore, we're going to join ISIS and Al-Qaeda, then why are we funding them in the first place? Why are we funding an enemy that says they'll be loyal, but the moment we stop giving them what they want, they're going to turn against us? Again, like I said with Lee Hamilton's quote earlier, is that really a wise idea to be funding an organization that is loyal until they stop getting what they want? Of course it's not. So what can we see from this? We've covered topicality, and we are a topical as the affirmative team. 3 voting issues. Vetting doesn't change anything. We can see that you first have to know who these moderate rebel groups are, and we can't from the current system. We can see that ground troops aren't loyal to the U.S., that training isn't really going to help because there's been no evidence addressed from the negative team, and finally, that we are significant because funding an organization that supports ISIS and Al-Qaeda is merely unwise and unneeded. For all these reasons and disadvantages, I strongly urge that we change the status quo. Vote affirmative. Thank you for your time today.